everybody. I think we will go ahead and get started. My name is Erin Rosenblum. I'm the Health and Science Librarian at the Portland Public Library, and I am your host this evening, at least here on Zoom, along with my co-host, Jess Burton, who is the Executive Director of the Southern Maine Conservation Collaborative and PPL and the Southern Maine Conservation Collaborative. Together bring you this sustainability series and tonight's talk with the City of Portland Sustainability Office. Before we go any further, I would like to offer PPL's land acknowledgement, and that is a way we use of showing respect and a step towards correcting the stories and practices that erase Indigenous peoples' history and culture, and toward inviting and honoring the truth. So Portland Public Library would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the occupied and unceded territory of the Wabanaki, the people of the place where the sun first looks our way, who have stewarded this land throughout the generations. We extend our respect and gratitude to the many Indigenous people and their ancestors, whose rich histories and vibrant communities include the Abenaki, Mullaseet, Micmac, Passamaquoddy, and Penobscot nations, and all the Native communities who have lived in Chuabunkeg for over 3,000 generations in what is now called New England and the Canadian Maritimes. We thank them for their strength and resilience in protecting this land and aspire to uphold our responsibilities according to their example. So there will be discussion and Q&A after the presentation tonight, but we would encourage you to drop your questions into the Q&A. You can hit the Q&A button in your Zoom or in the chat anytime. So if a question comes to you, go ahead and put it in. Just know that we will get to as many of them as possible after the talk ends. So tonight we have with us the entire full-time staff of the City of Portland's Sustainability Office. So that's Troy Moon, who is the Sustainability Coordinator for the City of Portland, Erin Ferrell, who is a Sustainability Associate, and Katie Timms, who is also a Sustainability Associate. They lead the city's sustainability, climate, and environmental initiatives, and they work to help the city government and the community reduce carbon emissions, manage resources wisely, and prepare for the impacts of climate change. And I'm delighted to hand it over to them to let us know what's new in those areas right now.
Great, thanks, Erin. Maybe you can throw up our slides and we'll get started. So welcome, everybody. And I'm Troy Moon. I'm the Sustainability Director with the City of Portland, as Erin mentioned, and I'm really happy to be here tonight. I think this is my fourth annual presentation as part of the sustainability series, and it's really a great opportunity to kind of do a check-in with folks who live in Portland and Greater Portland and are interested in the work we are doing. And this year, I'm really excited to be joined by my colleagues in my office, Erin Ferrell and Katie Timms. So maybe Erin, you can advance that. And so in the past, it's just been me kind of doing the presentation and kind of been a solo operator, and I've had some half-time folks in the past. And last time I did this presentation, Erin had just started and was still only half-time. And luckily, July 1st came around and the City Council had added funding for Erin to be full-time, and also gave us funding to add Katie to be full-time. So now we have a team of 3 of us working full-time on sustainability projects, and I'm finding that we're just as busy as we were when there was only one of us. So that means we're picking up a lot of really great initiatives and hopefully getting a lot of really great work done. And we also have the pleasure of working with a Resilience Corps fellow, Emma Perry, who's a UVM graduate, and she's with us until October. And so the Resilience Corps folks, it's a program of the Greater Portland Council of Governments, and they recruit really talented recent graduates from college who come in and kind of get some experience working in sustainability and resilience places. And we're happy to have Emma with us. So let's move on to the next slide. And so our mission, Erin kind of alluded to it. Our mission is to kind of help Portland get ready for the impacts of climate change. And we talk a lot about, Portland as being a wonderful place to live. And I think we just got some more headlines, made another number one list in travel and leisure as like the best place to be. And kind of our objective is to, as we go into the future, that we kind of hopefully maintain that quality of life and keep Portland to be a wonderful place to live, even though we know we'll be experiencing sea level rise and other challenges. And so we know, three of us, and with Emma, the four of us, certainly can't accomplish these missions ourselves. So we collaborate with our colleagues in other departments. We work really closely with the planning department and Parks and Rec and Public Works, and we're building more relationships with our public health department right now. So we work together inside the city, but we also need to work with our people in our community, because basically our office again is designed to improve and promote quality of life for everybody in Portland. So we want to help residents take sustainable actions, institute policies that will give them tools hopefully to take action themselves. And I think we're going to be talking a little bit about a new program coming up that we're really excited about. And Katie will be talking about that later. That's all about neighborhood level sustainability actions. And so stay tuned for that later in the presentation. And moving on to the next slide. So what does sustainability mean to us? I just wanted to define this a little bit before we go into it. Because most of the time when people think about sustainability, you think about the environment and taking care of water and the air and soils, and that's really important. That's definitely one thing we work really hard on. But there, the three-legged stool of sustainability. It's really important for us to think about the other elements as well. So we think about social sustainability. So we want to make sure we have an equitable city. We want to make sure that as we transition to renewable energy and clean energy, that everyone in the community, regardless of income or where they live, has opportunity to benefit from solar energy and for energy efficiency and the benefits that those provide. We want to make sure that we're gearing our programs to help everyone. We don't want to leave people out, and we want to bring everybody forward. And then also economic sustainability is really, really important as well. So we want to be good stewards of financial resources. So we're really proud of the city that has been really good at managing our resources financially. We have a really good bond rating, which is important because we're going to have to continue to make investments in infrastructure and services over the years, and we need to make sure that we're able to have access to capital at an affordable rate. We're also really concerned about sustainable economy in terms of business opportunities. So we really are big promoters of buying local. We know that every dollar you spend at a local business circulates around the economy. It employs our neighbors and friends. And also dollars in businesses often circulate around the business community too. So someone with a business might hire business services. They might hire an accountant. They might hire some graphic designers, that also work in Portland. So those dollars stay in our community and circulate and promote economic activity here, which is really important. So again, sustainability is that three-legged stool, and we need to make sure that we're looking at all three elements as we go forward. So next slide, Erin. And we've talked in previous talks about One Climate Future, which most people hopefully know now is our climate action plan that was adopted by the City Council in 2020. We developed it in collaboration with our partners in South Portland. And so we've been at it for a couple years now and making progress. But just a quick summary of it falls into four buckets. So if you could move the slide forward, Erin. So we have 68 different strategies that we want to undertake that address elements of buildings to energy use, which is our largest area of emissions. But 60%, a little bit more than 60% of carbon emissions from Portland come from buildings and energy use. So transportation and land use. Transportation accounts for about 30%. We want to reduce waste. We have a goal to be by 2050. We want to be a zero waste community. So we want to work on ways to increase, reduce waste, increase recycling, increase composting. And finally, we know that, sea level rise is going to be a problem, as well as other impacts like heat and, more, insect-borne illnesses. So we want to make sure that we're thinking about resilience as well. So those are the elements of our plan. And we'll talk about some of the strategies, some of the programs we're enacting to address these. So, and I kind of mentioned this in previously, but you can see the breakdown of where emissions come from. We did this work as we put together One Climate Future. We can see that buildings need to be a real focus of the work we do. We have Portland has old buildings, and we need to weatherize them and change to renewable energy. But overall, we have about 840,000 metric tons of carbon emitted from from the city of Portland, including the city and the residents and the businesses. So that's a lot of carbon we have to reduce, and our goal is to have that reduced 80% by 2050. So we have our work cut out for us. So, and pass it over to Erin to take this next section.
Yeah, so like Troy said, one of the goals in the One Climate Future plan is to reduce or to be a waste-free city by 2050. And one of the big first steps for that was reducing food waste for residents. So the city opened food waste drop sites around Portland where residents can go and drop off food waste for free. I'll go to this one where you can see that through this waste composition study, actually 37% of the waste that was measured came by weight, came from food waste, which is really interesting because, we want to make sure that residents are able to reduce the amount that they're throwing away by, through buying purple bags and things like that. So offering food waste drop sites is a way that residents can reduce their food waste, reduce the cost associated with waste for homes, and help reach the city's goals. So here's a map of all of the food waste drop sites currently located around Portland. Earlier this year, we released a survey and got a really, really good response rate and listened to residents, and were able to open 3 new sites around Portland to address areas where residents weren't able to access a site locally. So we'd really like to, keep expanding this kind of a program and be able to have sites near any resident that lives in Portland. We actually applied for and were awarded a DEP waste diversion grant from the state, and we were awarded about $9,000 to help translate the signage and educational materials, social media content, things like that, to try to make this program even more accessible to any resident that lives in Portland.
Do you mind if I jump in for a second, Erin?
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
So I'm actually, when I started my career in the city, I was the solid waste manager. So I'm really interested in waste reduction and trash. One thing, Portland has always done a really amazing job at recycling. We started our pay-as-you-throw program in curbside recycling in 1999, and we used to throw away 23,000 tons of trash every year. And now, over the years, we've gotten that down to about 9,500 tons, which is over 60% reduction, which is pretty impressive. And recycling has gone from like just almost nothing to almost 6,000 tons a year. So we recycle about 38% of our trash every year. But composting was like kind of that last barrier. We need, if we're going to achieve our goal to be a zero waste community, composting was and reducing food waste was like, it's kind of a linchpin. It's like the one area we hadn't done anything on yet. So we're really excited to get that going. And also another thing we're excited about this year is we're going to start composting in city buildings. So our Barron Center and the new Homeless Services Center will have composting, and our City Hall cafeteria will soon have composting. So we're really excited to add those to our list of things we're doing.
Yeah, and now is my turn to talk about sustainable land care, which is another one of the initiatives that we really try and promote education about how to keep a sustainable lawn, and how to take care of your lawn without using pesticides. And so I guess one of the most recent things that we have done is we hosted a workshop with some of our local land care professionals that really focused on soil health and sustainable landscaping practices. And we mostly on this topic do a lot of educational campaigns, mostly in the summertime, talking with residents about spreading the word about our city's ordinance about land care and sharing sustainable land care tips. But if you go to the next slide, I'd like to mention that we do have a land care ordinance here in Portland. And this past September, our city council voted to amend the land care ordinance, restricting the use of pesticides and synthetic fertilizers. So for a while, it had only restrictions on pesticide use, but we've expanded that to restrict the use of synthetic fertilizers and organic fertilizers on certain circumstances. And this ordinance is incredibly important for protecting the health of our waterways and our pets and residents and the natural ecosystem around us. And I would also like to give a shout out to our Parks and Rec department, which has been super supportive and recently also achieved 100% organic management of all of our athletic fields and parks and playgrounds here in Portland. And so we're really keen on trying to protect our Casco Bay and our residents here by taking care of our lawns sustainably. Troy, you're muted.
So just to add a little bit more on that. So one of the big changes that Katie mentioned, the city council amended the pesticide ordinance that was a restriction on synthetic pesticides, again, now includes synthetic fertilizers. And also it has restrictions on organic fertilizers. And one of the main reasons we want to do that is, as Katie kind of alluded to, about water quality. So we're right on Casco Bay. Anything that gets onto our land, especially if there's too much of it, ends up gets in if there's a heavy rain or it washes off into the storm drains and ends up in Casco Bay. When we're experiencing algal blooms, increased acidification of our coastal waters, and a lot of that is coming from excess nutrients. So we're really concerned about too much fertilizers. And so people might ask, well, why are you restricting organic fertilizers as well? I mean, but because nutrients are nutrients, and if there's too much applied, it's still a problem. So our ordinance does allow the application of organic fertilizers, but only if people have a soil test that year that indicates a need for that nutrient. And you can get soil tests easily from the Cooperative Extension. But we just want people to think about, soils are so important. We want people to think really and to take care of the soils and to manage them in a way that's sustainable and increases the activity of the microbial and bacterial and fungi in the soil. And really, that's what we're going to base our healthy environment on, is those soils. Healthy soils are kind of the foundation of healthy ecosystem. So that's why we have our ordinance. And we can go forward again, Katie. And Katie mentioned our work with the Parks and Rec department. And over the years, Parks and Rec has done a really great job of kind of rethinking how we manage our open spaces. So we've started to initiate things like orchards. So for instance, we see in this slide, Mount Joy Orchard, which is right below the East End School, is one of 3 kind of community orchards that are around the city that are welcome to, for anybody to partake of in the harvest season. Mount Joy is the most active. There's a really great volunteer group that manages that really well, and they do trainings. They teach people how to prune trees and how to take care of fruit trees. And there's an understory of other edibles underneath the orchard, the folks at the Mount Joy Orchard, the volunteers just do an amazing job. And we also, Parks has worked on having more, native habitat, more meadow environments as well. So again, also on the east, this was the first of the kind of meadow habitats so if you go down Washington Avenue, or if you're up at the school, you can see, oftentimes that whole area is just covered in flowers and blooms, and you'll see butterflies and lots of birds. So just in a way to help people think a new way about how to manage land. You don't have park space or open space doesn't just have to be manicured and mowed lawns. It can also be can be more wild. And we're really fortunate in Portland to have a lot of park space, a lot of undeveloped open space too, like Baxter Woods and the Four River Sanctuary and the Brezumscot River Preserve. So really encourage people to go out there and enjoy those, but also think about that in terms of your own property, your own landscape. There's, maybe there's a great opportunity to have kind of a wilder section of your lawn, and that's really an important part of maintaining a sustainable land care, is like putting the right plants in the right place. So as part of our organic land care approach, we really encourage people to take a hard look at what they're trying to do and what their goals are. So turf grass is definitely an appropriate use for a lot of space, but trying to grow grass underneath a pine tree, you're never going to be successful. So thinking about the right plant in the right place, and then watering it appropriately, and then managing it with as few inputs as possible. That's kind of our objective. And mode shift. So kind of jumping over to another category of the One Climate Future goals is our land use and transportation section. So one of the things that we want to promote people getting out of their cars. We knew, as part of One Climate Future, we did an analysis, and we found that 87% of trips in Portland are in single occupant cars. So not sustainable in the long term. So we want to try to promote transit. So we work really closely with our partners at Metro to think about ways to improve transit service. So whether it would be better bus stops, or rethinking our routes, the routes of the buses, facilitating things like on Congress Street, the bus transit priority route. So if you're traveling up and down Congress Street, might find if you're in a car that you have to wait for the bus to let passengers off and let passengers on, and because the buses have priority on that corridor. And those are things we're looking at other parts of the city as well. We're looking at really hard at bike opportunities. So we have our first separated bike lane that's on Park Avenue that we're still working to make improvements on that and to add more of those types of things. I know our planning department and our public works department are looking at opportunities to add new and better bike infrastructure. In fact, one of the big, and a lot of that's opportunistic. If there's projects underway, if there's an opportunity to make some amendments to the street, the public works department will take that opportunity to do it. So for instance, on Preble Street, during the big dig that's going on over by the soccer courts, the soccer fields, on Preble Street, there used to be kind of a slip lane that would go on to Baxter Boulevard. And so they had the construction company, while they're there, just wipe out that slip lane for cars and made it an extension of the bike lane. So now bikes can go around to Back Cove really easily, but cars have to go to the corner and stop and take an actual right-hand turn, which is so much safer for people trying to cross the street, and also for cyclists. So those are the types of things we're thinking about, and there's certainly more work to do. And Bruce Hyman and Keith Gray do a lot of thinking about that. So we're excited to see what they come up with in the future. Another thing the planning department's working on too, it actually was passed on the same night as One Climate Future was adopted. Recode Phase 1, there's a section of it that talks about parking requirements for new construction. So Portland is one of the few cities around the country now who have gotten rid of parking minimums for new construction. So in Portland, if you're building an apartment building or an office building, if you're within a quarter mile of fixed route transit, like a metro line, you're not required to have parking spots as part of the site plan. You have to have some sort of plan for dealing with traffic. So that might be providing bike racks, and promoting car share, or promoting using transit, or requiring tenants to rent a space in a parking garage. But there's no requirement to actually have parking for those developments. So because parking is expensive, and so particularly if you're looking at housing, if you're building parking, you are probably building fewer housing units. So that's one way we're thinking about mode shift too, is like if we keep designing infrastructure for cars, we're going to get more cars. So it's really exciting that the planning department and the planning board has taken that step to move away from parking requirements when there are other alternatives available for people to use. So, and moving on to the next one, you probably saw some of the bike share bikes that launched last year. So our colleague Bruce Hyman, who's in the planning department, is our manager of this program, and it sort of got a start late last summer. And went really well. Ridership exceeded expectations. So we're excited to see how well it will do this year with a full year of cycling to happen. So if you haven't had a chance yet to ride any of the bikes, I would encourage you to do so. They have both these sort of typical, regular pedaling bikes, but they also have e-bikes available too. So some of the docks will have e-bikes in them, and so if you haven't had a chance to ride an e-bike this spring when they come back out, you should take advantage of that opportunity. And EV charging, that's another big thing we're working on. And so this is a new charger that's installed at the East End School parking lot. So we've developed a partnership with EVgo, which is a big national EV charging company. They mostly specialize in fast chargers, but we were able to convince them to work with us and do level 2s as well. So this is part of our strategy to install neighborhood EV charging hubs. So we're looking at places around the city that have a lot of apartments, a lot of people who don't have driveways, and planting a bunch of EV chargers really convenient to their homes, so people can get an EV. They can park when they need to charge. They can go to the neighborhood charging hub and then get charged up overnight or in a few hours and then move on. So we've got 3 charging hubs installed, not quite operational. We're waiting for our friends at Central Maine Power to come and turn them on. But this hub here at East End School has 4 chargers, 4 EV chargers. The Deering Oaks parking lot has 6 EV chargers. And then at the corner of Spring Street and High Street, there are 4 level 2 chargers, but we're also excited that there are 4 DC fast chargers almost ready to go at the corner of Spring and High Street. That hopefully, fingers crossed, will be operational in March, and we'll have 4 new fast chargers. And then we're working with EVgo to locate 4 more fast chargers, as well as a whole slew of more level 2 chargers. And we already have a network of 15 level 2 chargers that the city installed over the last couple years that are in existence too. So we're seeing more and more EVs out there, and more people will have EVs if they feel like they're able to find a charger and that's convenient to their home. So that's definitely a part of our transition. We want to promote mode shift, as I mentioned. We want to help people get out of cars to walk more, to ride bikes and ride the bus. But we know cars are going to be here for some time. We are in Maine, and sometimes you have to go places where you can't take the bus. So we want to make EV. What cars we have, we want them to be EVs, and so we want to make sure this infrastructure is installed for that to happen.
So, as Troy said, about 55% of the city's greenhouse gas emissions came from buildings in Portland. And this graph actually shows all each wedge here shows a different climate action listed in our climate action plan, and the size shows the emission reduction potential. So it shows that one thing isn't going to help us reduce all of the emissions and reach our goal of net zero or 80% by 2050. But everything together can help us get to that point. But here you can see the large yellow wedge can show the emission reduction potential of our renewable portfolio standard for this that the state set. So that would be the percentage of the grid that is powered by renewable energy. So as the grid is greening, if we upgrade to electric appliances and upgrade our buildings to run on electricity, that will take advantage of the greening grid and help us reach our goals set in the One Climate Future plan. So this graph is just a visualization of what that idea is and why the renewable portfolio standard and electrification is so important for reaching our goals. So that is one of the main reasons why in March of 2022, the city of Portland, we launched Electrify Everything, our first round. We partnered with Revision Energy, who was able to offer discounts to any Portland resident who went through Electrify Everything and went to Revision and signed up for either a heat pump, a water heater heat pump, solar, rooftop solar, if they could have signed up for community solar, leasing a community solar plot, anything like that, and they would have received some kind of a discount through going through Electrify Everything. We were able to assist in over 100 electrification projects during that program that ran for about 8 months. And we were really excited about our first year. You know, the city, we didn't have money to put into this project. We were just able to provide outreach and just educate Portland residents and try to help understand the importance of electrification and help with a slight discount in getting to that point to help homeowners do those projects. So this year we were awarded about $200,000 in ARPA funds to support the next round of Electrify Everything, which we've been calling Electrify 2.0. This next round, which I'll show on the next slide, but we're going to be launching this in the next year, and it's going to be focused on low to moderate income residents in Portland, and that is, people can qualify for that by being at 80% of the average median income for Portland. And Electrify Everything is going to be something that's going to continue forever. I just mentioned, you know, our first round in Electrify 2.0, but we want this program to continue forever with different, you know, focuses each year or each round. So our first round, you know, we focused on specifically and mainly homeowners of single family homeowners. And this next round is going to be focused, you know, have a wider focus. So Electrify 2.0, we're going to launch an e-bike incentive to help, you know, bridge the gap in being able to make e-bikes accessible, hopefully helping residents to, you know, a trip that they would have maybe taken the car, switch to an e-bike. And make that something that's more accessible for residents in Portland. And then we also wanted to launch a DIY Electrify program because our first round wasn't able to you know, speak to renters as much as something like this would. So we're going to offer rebates and incentives to help anyone can apply for this, but specifically this can help renters do DIY at home electrification, like upgrading to purchasing a portable induction stovetop. That's specifically helpful if the renter is currently using a gas burner, one that's going to help with electrification, but also with indoor air quality. Residents can purchase things like a clothes drying rack, one less load on the dryer, and then also do at-home weatherization such as window caulking and weather stripping, window sealing, things like that. So we're going to be able to offer rebates to residents who have purchased these kinds of materials, and you know, just help electrification, but also weatherization in that way. And I don't know if Troy, if you had anything else you wanted to say about Electrify Everything before we moved. But
Well, I just want to mention too the partnership with Efficiency Maine. So both in Electrify, the original version, as well as upcoming versions of Electrify, we'll you know, Efficiency Maine has outstanding rebates and incentives, and you know, anything that we do, we want to add on to what they're doing. So we don't want to spend money twice. We want to like double it basically. So if Efficiency Maine is able to give an incentive, we want to try to, you know, sweeten the pot even further, because, you know, Efficiency Maine is an amazing resource, and we're really fortunate in Maine to have an agency that works as well and is effectively on energy efficiency. I talk to colleagues in other states, and they're jealous of the incentives that come from Efficiency Maine, and so I would certainly encourage anyone to look at efficiencymaine.com and all the different programs available there. So whether you qualify for our incentives or not, Efficiency Maine has amazing, outstanding resources and are happy to help you. And lots of installers and contractors in the Portland area are partners with Efficiency Maine and can do installs for you. There's a great tool on the Efficiency Maine website that can help you find a contractor that that you might enjoy working with. So again, can't say enough good things about the work they do.
Great point. So then also a lesser known maybe ordinance, but we have an energy and water use benchmarking ordinance that our office has been implementing for at least the last 3 years. But the energy benchmarking ordinance requires bigger buildings in Portland to report their energy and water usage. This is a way to help owners of bigger buildings kind of make bigger buildings look at the energy that they're using, and also a way to show, compare a building of a similar size and a similar use type and be able to show, you know, where buildings might be losing energy, where they might be able to take advantage of an efficiency main program or any other, efficiency opportunity. And those are things that we can help, identify for these building owners. But it's also, we wanted to mention it tonight because it is, important that these building owners are doing this. It's also a time commitment on their part. And we are happy that building owners are taking the time to complete these reports. And we want to make sure that it's known how important an ordinance like this is.
So just to build on some more of that too, we always talk about you can't, if you don't measure it, you can't improve it. So that's kind of the goal of the program. And so we're like, this year we're looking to, we'll have right now we have about 200 buildings around the city that have to report their data to Erin. And it's basically, 20 buildings with 20,000 square feet or more that only have one primary occupant, so like office building with one company or a warehouse. But we've been working with CMP for about 3 years to encourage them to improve their data platform. So one of the problems we've had is the larger buildings that have multiple tenants haven't been able to get access to all of their data. So that each individual tenant would have to provide the data to the landlord, and who would have to provide it to Erin, which is really complicated and not really practical for them to do. So working closely with CMP, they're on the verge of launching a new platform that will provide what we call whole building aggregated data for all of the all the multi-tenant buildings. And so by next year, this time, we'll be looking at 600 buildings reporting data to Erin. So we were also really pleased that we've launched a new platform, customer management platform for the benchmarking program that will allow us to give a lot better service to the building owners. So Erin will be able to keep track of the data they report, as well as all the questions they ask and the feedback that she's able to provide them. So in that point, we'll be able to, as Erin mentioned, we want to be able to report back to the building owners about opportunities they have to save energy and reduce their cost. We want to be able to tell, someone who owns Fred's warehouse, we want to be able to tell them about Joe's warehouse, who uses way less energy. And if Fred can do some of the things that Joe did, he can save a lot of money. So that's, so it meets their financial goals, but also helps us meet our carbon emission goals too. So we're excited about that improvement of the program. And another thing that you're going to be learning a lot more about over the course of the year is we're, again, working really closely with our planning department. So we're working on what we're calling climate resilience overlay zones. So in One Climate Future, we talked about resilience, and so making sure that our city is ready for sea level rise and other hazards related to climate change is really something that's really important for us to think about. We know that by 2050, we're looking at between 1.5 to 2 feet of sea level rise, which really will change how we use the waterfront. That would basically kind of be nuisance flooding, or actually more than nuisance flooding on the piers and wharfs and edges of Commercial Street at every high tide. So we need to make sure as we design and build new buildings, particularly on the waterfront, but also around the city, that they're designed appropriately to take care of that. So we imagined a program in One Climate Future that would divide the city into 3 sections, and each one would have different rules for development depending on where what their vulnerabilities are. And so we have hired a leading company, engineering and architecture firm called Utile. They've done similar work in Portland, in Boston, as well as Providence, to think about these resilience overlays. And so over the course of the year, there'll be opportunities for the public to engage with planning staff in our offices and the consultants, and participate in the process of thinking about what these tiers might look like and what some of the restrictions might look like. For instance, we might say in the tier one, the most vulnerable part of the city, that we would prioritize low density developments or even open space. For instance, like the new park that's going to be under construction on the waterfront, kind of where the old queuing lanes are now. That's going to be a new park, and that's kind of some of the most resilient infrastructure that we could have. There's no buildings to be damaged, and the land can soak up sea level, soak up storm surges and not put people in danger. But we might think about, if people are going to build a building, it would have to be constructed so that no one's endangered if it were to be flooded. So, rooms and electrical infrastructure at higher than the first floor. So, but that's a conversation that's going to happen over the course of the year, and there'll be a lot of public process and participation. But so stay tuned. If that's something you're interested in, you'll have an opportunity to participate in that conversation.
Yeah, and so now we've just told you about the many programs that we have planned and implemented and managed, but a really big part of what we also do is community engagement. These amazing programs, we really try and get the word out as much as we can about them. One of our biggest priorities is making sure the public knows what we offer and how to take advantage of these resources that we are constantly trying to provide. And so community engagement is at least one of my favorite things to do in the office. And these are just some of the pictures of some of our recent events. You'll see to the left, that was our first ever pumpkin cycle that we threw. It was the weekend after Halloween, and we invited residents to come to Payson Park and bring their old slumpin' pumpkins. And it was actually quite a fun event. We collected over 3,000 pounds of pumpkins within like 3 hours on a Saturday morning, and people were just happy to come and grab a donut at a local food truck and chuck their pumpkin. But we host quite a few other events. We co-sponsor Drive Electric for Maine, where residents can come and test drive an EV and talk to EV owners and consider their options for getting an electric vehicle. Over to the right, there's some of the pictures of some of the landcare events that I mentioned. And we do a lot of pop-up events, and always look forward to engaging with residents. And if you go to the next slide, there's even just a snapshot of some of the major ones we did in 2022, but we're really always trying to get out on the street and talk to residents and tell them who we are and what we do and how we can help them. And I would love to speak a little bit about our newest program. So the City of Portland recently launched the Sustainable Neighborhoods Program. And if you want to go to the next slide, this program will engage residents to build community resilience and organize sustainable initiatives that they choose within their own neighborhoods. And so we are right now inviting all of Portland neighborhood and island communities to gather support within their communities and apply to join the program. And we will be selecting 2 Portland neighborhoods to launch in the first year of the program. And if you go to the next slide, these participating sustainable neighborhoods will earn credits for achieving their sustainability goals by completing different projects and activities. And these could look like really a variety of different things that they might want to do. So they could be one-time events such as a neighborhood street cleanup, or hosting a bike to work day with some of their coworkers in the local neighborhood. They could also be longer term projects. This could be organizing a team of residents to help shovel steps and driveways for neighbors who can't always do it themselves, or organizing a network of neighbors to share lawn tools and equipment to just be more neighborly and save on emissions. And so these could be workshops or events. You could start a club. And so we're excited to see what neighbors might want to do. But this program really just creates a framework for communities to identify actions that they find are important to them and relevant to their neighborhood climate concerns, and then work together with their neighbors to accomplish their goals. So if you go to the next slide, kind of looking at this at a broader picture, these actions will all earn credits that we get to help tally up for the residents. So it kind of creates some healthy competition between neighborhoods, because depending on how many credits they earn, they'll either be a participating or an outstanding sustainable neighborhood. And we're happy and so happy to be able to give them citywide recognition for being a leading neighborhood. So it's kind of a pat on the back and a annual celebration with the mayor and city council, and really recognizing people for taking initiatives within their own communities. And I guess the broader goals of this program that we're really excited to launch is to help unify our neighbors and celebrate neighborhood pride. Everybody in Portland knows where they live and what island they live on. If you're in a neighborhood, you know where you are and you kind of feel proud about it. And I think that's something we're really going to try and take advantage of. But this program allows us to bring inclusive programming about climate action in Portland, and harness a lot of the volunteers that we see on a daily basis, and harness that energy for doing great things for the city. And I think most importantly, we hope to see really building community resilience in Portland. There are studies that show that the more connected people are with their neighbors and community resources, the more likely they are to survive future emergencies and weather events. And we know that full well here with ice storms and flooding. So I think it's really a cool program that might allow us to establish systems where neighbors can check in on each other and prepare for future emergencies. And if you go to the next slide. So we right now are trying to create as much outreach about the program as possible and connect interested residents and interested neighborhood organizations. And we will be hosting an informational open house here in City Hall on Thursday, March 2nd. And the day after that, applications will be open. And we hope that people can really gather neighborhood support from all areas of their neighborhood or island, and demonstrate that they're really hopeful about inclusive programming and an intent to bring positive change. And we will be closing applications and selecting 2 neighborhoods, and then announcing the 2 neighborhoods on Earth Day. So save the date. There's going to be a big fun citywide Earth Day event in Payson Park with some of our friends at Parks and Rec and Public Health. So it is a big city event, and there will be food trucks and e-bikes to demo, and hopefully a musical performance too. So we've got a lot of things in the planning, but save the date. And I guess if you go to the next slide, I did want to mention too that we are working with the Sustainable Neighborhood Network. So we recently joined it. This Sustainable Neighborhoods program wasn't our beautiful brainchild, but it has been running successfully over in Colorado. And we are the first non-Colorado city to join the network. And so we're working with our partners, and we have a lot of great tips to see how the Sustainable Neighborhoods program has gone successfully. And we're lucky to, start one here in Portland, Maine. And yeah.
So I just want to add, so as Katie mentioned, this is a program that kind of started in Colorado. My colleague, Jonathan Wachtel, is the sustainability director in Lakewood, Colorado. And he started this it was his idea, and he as a way to engage. He was actually working in the planning department. He was looking for a way to engage all of the neighborhoods and help them be more successful and closer knit, develop those relationships that Katie mentioned that are really important. And so he launched this, and it was pretty successful. So Lakewood is right next to Denver. So the city of Denver is like, wow, that is a cool idea. So Denver adopted it as well. And then Fort Collins and Wheat Ridge joined as well. And so it's been really successful. And so I've been watching Jonathan's program for years, and was really like, I'd love to have this program in Portland because we have such great neighborhoods and we have a lot of, neighborhood spirit, as Katie mentioned, and it's a great opportunity to help neighbors get to know each other more broadly. So a lot of times, people in, kind of neighbors near you, but down the street, maybe you don't know them so much, or a couple streets over. So our goal is really to help build those neighborhood, knit them together and help people know each other and be collaborative. And so this program has some wonderful tools. There's a website. And so I would absolutely encourage anyone who's even remotely interested to check out the resources that Katie mentioned, and come to the open house and learn more about it. And, if you sign up, and, even if you're not currently, part of the neighborhood organization per se, you should still sign up. And, Katie's going to help connect people together. So if one person signs up and is interested, Katie will say, hey, do you know the other folks down the street that also are interested, and can help connect people together to share ideas and put together an application. We're really excited for this year. We want to make sure that we can be successful. So we're going to do we're going to launch with 2 neighborhoods so we can, make sure we can support everybody and get off on the right foot. And then we anticipate adding more neighborhoods next year as well. So just I'm so excited about this, and hope you'll take a strong look at it.
So one last engagement opportunity, I guess, that we hold. Our One Climate Future team, as Troy said, is made up of the Portland Sustainability Office, but also the South Portland Sustainability Office. And every month we hold a coffee and climate event where we host a speaker who's speaking on something that's going on locally about that has to do with climate action and has to do with something in our climate action plan. So this is pretty broad. You can see here that we have planned out for the rest of the year our coffee and climate events. We're really excited to have a couple in-person events this summer, one at the Museum of Art. We have one at a local brewery, and just be able to talk to and hear about what's going on with these speakers. And we're able to ask them questions and have a really engaging conversation about, whatever the topic is. So here you can see the list of events for the rest of the year. And on this last slide, you can see that we also have an Instagram where you can see different events that we are holding, like educational events. Like Katie said, we just held an event with landcare professionals. We have a lot of other things going on, including the One Climate Future coffee and climate events. And we also have a monthly newsletter, which if you're interested in signing up for this once a month newsletter, you can sign up at oneclimatefuture.org. And we really just talk about the upcoming coffee and climate and give some information about what's going on in the Portland and South Portland sustainability offices.
Cool. So just kind of to wrap up the formal part of the presentation, and then before we jump into questions, kind of like the theme, you can kind of tell the theme of our program is, we can't do it ourselves, and this is a huge collaboration, and we want to continue to engage people who live in the city and our colleagues who, also work in city government. And, it's only together are we going to be able to advance two of the One Climate Future vision that we want to achieve, of a resilient, sustainable Portland that's, just as, livable in 2050 as it is now, maybe even more so. That's the thing I like about One Climate Future is, it's like, it's easy to kind of be pessimistic about, we read in the news about, climate impacts and storms and disasters, but, the One Climate Future is a positive vision. It kind of asks us to think about what we want Portland to be and what we want it to look like in 30 years, and gives us the opportunity to kind of work together to achieve that goal, to have our One Climate Future in 2050. So that's I'm really excited to have Erin and Katie on the team now, and I think we're able to do a lot more work and to reach out to more people in the community and hopefully provide more tools and resources for us all as we go forward. And so with that, I guess we can wrap up our talk, and I see there's a bunch of questions in the chat, and we can dive right into those.
Yeah, there are so many questions. So thank you, first of all, Troy and Erin and Katie. That was great. And I feel like I just kind of just want to say congratulations, because that was not at all the same talk as last year, because you all have so much going on and so much that's new going on. And I feel like you mentioned Electrify Everything last year, probably because it was new, and you're on to the next version. So yeah, great stuff. Yeah, we have a lot of questions. I feel this is a good thing. I feel like it's going to be another night where I don't get to ask any of my questions because there are so many great questions. So I'll grab the first one, and then which is, I'm curious if there is money to help groups access regenerative building info and supports for bringing in some experiments in biophilic design and making housing and workplaces healthier for planet and residents. And the
That's a good
addendum was
question.
beyond net zero.
Yeah, no, that's really great. I mean, ultimately, you're right. That's where we have to go. We want to reduce carbon. If we can sequester carbon, that's even better. So we're kind of in the infancy of it. So I think as we think about the organic land care ordinance, particularly, we're also thinking about site design and how we build new projects, and the types of landscaping and water management resources that need to go into that. So that's evolving. But we do collaborate with like Passive House Maine and other folks, and so we'd love to talk more about it. And if the questioner has some ideas of ways we can partner and resources we can kind of chat about within the building and design community, we'd be really excited. We work really closely with the Portland Society for Architecture as well as the Passive House Maine, and they do a lot of really great educational material events. And yeah, so I think that would be an opportunity. We'd love to talk more about that.
Thanks, Troy. So we have another question. Could you provide more detail on the cost and design of the food waste composition study?
Sure. That was a really fun project, actually. So we did it in collaboration with Dr. Travis Wagner, who at the time was working at the University of Southern Maine. And Dr. Wagner specializes in waste management issues. And so as part of his academic work, he offered to help us do this really great, waste composition study. So he recruited a bunch of graduate students and some undergrad students, and so it didn't cost the city anything. It was part of Dr. Wagner's research work, and he was able to publish a paper about it. So you can actually, Google it, and you can read the scientific paper he wrote. So it was what they did is they identified 2 representative neighborhoods, and over the course of 6 weeks, would have the grad students basically go around and sample. We'd grab certain bags of trash and certain recycling bins, and we brought them back to a public works facility, and then the students and Dr. Wagner were able to sort them all out. They sifted all of the trash to get all of the different components, and the students had the pleasure of picking out all the pieces and weighing all of the individual components. So that's how it was, and so we were pleased to get that kind of detailed results. It was also interesting. At the same time, they did a litter study. This was right before we did the carts. So if you recall, back before we had carts, we had open tubs, and the wind actually was an issue that blew a lot of litter out of the recycling bins. So that we found out that there was basically a ton of litter that blew out every week. So that was kind of discouraging, which underscored the need for the carts, which I hope has mostly addressed the litter issue from blowing recycling. So, so Dr. Wagner, it was great to have him working here at USM at the time, and did that great work and it cost us nothing, which was excellent. So
great. The next question jumps over from trash to composting, different bins. So it's great that you're starting to focus on composting. I'm expecting that the trash barrels that you are collecting food waste in must be attracting wildlife, raccoons, coyotes, rats, etc. Any expectation of replacing the current trash barrels with wildlife-proof collection containers?
Katie, you want to take it?
I'll take this one actually. S I honestly think that wildlife is probably not as big of a problem with that as you may think, but our office is responsible for checking on all the compost sites every week. I myself have taken that task for the past few months. And actually, I think shoveling has been harder than dealing with the wildlife. We try and make sure every week that if there's a snowstorm, we shovel out all the compost buckets to make sure it's accessible to residents and accessible to the lovely folks who pick them up bi-weekly. So I think with fantastic partners who pick up the trash bins or composting bins each week, if they come twice a week, that we don't really have too much of a problem with the composting. But yeah, it is when you implement a program here in the city of Portland, the city of Portland does manage it. We are the ones out there making sure those sites are clean every week and accessible.
So I'm going to add that when we started this program, I was really, really nervous because we've had problems in the past with drop-off type programs that kind of people don't use them properly, and they might throw trash or mistreat the. And so I was really worried that it wasn't going to work very well. And, but I've been so pleasantly surprised that people are using the compost locations properly. We have very little issue with contamination, so people are literally only putting their compostable material in the bucket in the containers. The service from the vendor has been great. As Katie mentioned, they come twice a week. It's been so popular, we've had to add carts at almost all of the locations as more and more people use them. So luckily, and I haven't noticed a problem with animals yet either. So yeah, so far so good.
Yeah.
I just wanted to jump in. Oh yeah. I live so close to the bins that are at the Riverton Community Center that my dog and I check on them most mornings. Katie, it's good to know who I should tell if I see that something's gone terribly wrong. I
Shoot me
admit
an
that
email.
when they first arrived, I did actually peek once in a while because I was curious about contamination too. I think I saw a Coors Light can once, but mostly seems like food waste. Yeah, and I feel like my dog would have let me know if there were other critters around them. And we walk so early in the morning, perfect critter time, and haven't seen any. I did just want to tag on to that though. Where does it go? Is that being composted, at a city spot or facility, or going somewhere else?
I'll take it. So
Yeah.
right now we work with AgriCycle, and so they've been taking it to, they collect it and they have a farm-based digester. So it goes to EcoMaine, where they collect it with lots and lots of other food scraps, and then it goes in a large truck to Exeter, which is outside of Bangor. And the facility they go to is the second largest dairy farm in the state. And so they mix the food scraps with manure from the dairy cows, and they are creating, they digest it, they create methane, which they use to make 3 megawatts of electricity, and then they use the digestate on the farm fields to grow corn and hay. And so they use that nutrient instead of using fertilizers that they would have to purchase. They use the digestate, and then they cut down the hay, and it goes back to the cow. So it's kind of closed loop. But we are going to switch actually, because we just did a bid, because we want to make sure that we're good financial stewards. So we put out an opportunity to find what's the best cost we're going to get for the city. So garbage to garden was the low bidder, and so we're going to be switching to garbage to garden here in the next month or two, and then that'll go to a variety of different compost facilities. The one they go to the most is We Compost its facility in Auburn. So it will be, it's going to go from digestion to composting. But I think both of the options we have available to us are really good. So
that's awesome. Thank you. Okay, now we have a question about the status of the ordinance on bird safe designs in the city that the city is working with Maine Audubon.
Yes, that's great.
I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, last year, the Sustainability and Transportation Committee had a presentation from Portland Society for Architecture and Maine Audubon about bird-friendly ordinances in other cities. New York is an example that has one, a few other cities. So we saw that there's volunteers who walk around the city and during the migrations, and they identified that we do have a problem here in Portland with birds striking glass. And so they are recommending an ordinance to prevent such bird mortality. And so I've been working with kind of a subcommittee of design professionals and people in the building industry, as well as our planning department and our inspections department on ordinance language. And so that will be coming back to the Sustainability and Transportation Committee this year, which I know, staff has been supportive. Staff and planning and inspections have been supportive of working on, the right language and the right way to fit it into our ordinance structure. But that will be coming back to the committee pretty soon. I'd say, by midsummer, with action on that before the end of the year. As Councilor Zaro's indicated that it's a priority for the committee this year, and we'll get that wrapped up. So there'll be opportunities to follow that along and offer comment at an upcoming meeting.
Great. One thing about the breadth of the work that you all do is that we have questions on so many different topics. So the next one is about what approaches seem to be working for HVAC retrofits for existing buildings. So back onto a different topic.
Yeah, that is a tougher question for us. So I know we've been doing a bunch of work on newer buildings, and so for one thing that I'm really excited about is like the Federal Street project, which is the big building kind of across from City Hall with a big crane. They actually have these cool heat pump units for every individual. They have 268 apartments, and each one has its own little heat pump unit, which is really cool. I'd love to see that, in the future as well. But there's a ton more work to do for the existing building sections, and again, we're going to have to work really closely with folks in our design community on solutions for that. And one of our objectives, is in One Client Future, is to convene working groups of people in the building trades and design professionals to solve some of those exact problems. And so I must say that's an area we need to do more work on. So again, if that's something you're interested in and have some ideas, we'd encourage you to reach out to us, and we can get that conversation started more rigorously.
Yeah, and the organization Retrofit Maine might be another resource, which is Passive House Maine. Sort of, they're the same
Great
person basically, but same. And that might be a good resource for answers about that as well. So this is a question about resources. I did notice, Katie, you might have been typing. I don't know if you dropped anything in there. I don't see anything, but the question is, could you provide resources for choosing healthy fertilizers and pesticides? This person does worm composting of yard and food waste, and only occasionally needs amendments. That's great for you. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I know, exactly. But for those amendments, anything you could recommend?
You want to start, Katie?
Yeah, I saw that question come up, and I was typing. My first recommendation would to also be getting a soil test. See what your soil might need and what it might have too much of before you think about adding things. But I mean, from your standpoint, it does sound like you're taking good care of your healthy soil.
And so we do have some resources on our webpage. So if you went to the City of Portland webpage /landcare, you can go to our landcare page, and we have tips. We have like a fact sheet with 10 tips for organic land care. We have links to partners. Cooperative Extension has ideas. There's other outside groups beyond pesticides is lots of good ideas. And then we intend to offer more workshops. Like Katie mentioned earlier, we just held a workshop for land care professionals, landscapers, and pesticide applicators about building healthy soils without the use of pesticides. So yeah, stay tuned. We'll, as the, our new ordinance, the revisions take effect on March, was it 19th? So this is going to be a big push this month for more education and outreach about those sorts of things. So yeah, the first stop, I'd say our landcare webpage.
Well, again, we'll jump to another topic, which is transportation. So we have two questions on this topic, and one is asking what citizens can do to help promote free bus service and service that happens more frequently, recognizing that it would have to be subsidized, but the person says much more regular service would help me use the bus. I second that. And I'll just, since we're on that topic, also a question on pedestrian and bike routes east to west. This sounds like mostly on the peninsula. A person who had trouble riding their bike from the east end to the farmer's market because of the sort of dangerous roadways.
Yeah, so let's start with the transit one first. So I guess, the city doesn't actually, we don't, run the transit agency ourselves. So we collaborate with Greater Portland Metro, which is a separate agency. It does receive funding from the city. So I would say certainly engage with Metro, but also, you can, certainly share your thoughts and ideas with city staff. So Bruce Hyman is our transportation planner in the planning department. And you can certainly, our city councilors are always interested in feedback about transportation issues as well. So our sustainability and transportation committee would be the kind of the council subcommittee that would address that, and councilors are always the chair of that. Again, one of the goals that Bruce has and the city has as a whole is increasing the the bike ped infrastructure and more opportunities for safe cycling. Not everyone feels super comfortable taking the lane and riding up Congress Street, so we know we need some more bike infrastructure, and that's certainly a conversation where we're starting to develop the the byway program and having some more lanes, with straight painted lanes, and we're gonna have the one separated bike lane, but more to come. Certainly that's something that Bruce spends a lot of time thinking about, and we're starting to have conversations with groups like the Bike Coalition of Maine about what are some ideas we can take in the short term to make improvements. So in fact, we had a conversation with the Bike Coalition of Maine just last week to think about ideas, and so that's sort of definitely an active topic of conversation in City Hall, and hopefully we can bring some ideas forward here in the near future.
That's great, thanks. That made me think about the climate, the coffee and climate, just all the different, so having a platform for different groups and initiatives to speak also develops relationships for future partnerships and just sort of sharing of information. So I appreciate that very much. So I'm also going to combine two questions here, and I'm going to start with a gratitude. This person says, this was an incredibly strong webinar with a consistency in the excellence of the presentations and a positive energy from every speaker. Thanks so much for all your work and for organizing this event. So bravo, it was awesome. Hear, hear. And then a question about sort of goes together kind of around the citywide aspect of your work. So one of the maps you showed did not include the islands. So one of the viewers did notice that. And I think that sort of goes to some of the sustainability programs are not, well, like composting, for instance, isn't necessarily available on the island. So does that indicate some sort of difference in how the department kind of interacts with the island, recognizing, of course, as someone who lives on Big Sound, like we're not like just a neighborhood up the street, it's a lot more, there's a lot more logistical challenges to getting here. But and then the other question is around tracking. How will progress in the sustainability strategy be tracked and reported for the city as a whole? And then aside, has Portland committed to achieving zero carbon by a specific date? So sort of
lots of questions.
I guess they sort of funnel together, but yeah.
So certainly, islands are certainly a very important parts of the city, and we don't intention was no intention to slight them. And I think we need to. It's more of a graphic design thing. I think we have to like fix our map so we can like cut it, make a little corner and wedge or something. We can add the islands because we don't want to exclude the islands. We think we want to work really closely with our island community members as well. And over the summer, I had the opportunity to attend a workshop with residents on Great Diamond who are really concerned about sea level rise, particularly in climate change. And we're going to continue that dialogue for sure, and ways to make the island more resilient. And I am engaged with folks on Peaks Island who are very interested in composting. As as an island resident yourself, Jazz, like logistically, it can be difficult. But as the city as a whole, we really try to provide the same services on the islands as we do on the mainland. But sometimes sometimes just by logistics, it has to be a little bit different. So, but I've been speaking with the folks who are interested in composting, and hopefully we can find a way to make that work. Because again, as Katie mentioned, the islands are part of our communities, and we certainly encourage them to maybe sign up to be one of the first round of sustainable neighborhoods. Certainly, we love the islands too. In fact, I think our team here is so new, we need to make a trip and visit some of the islands so Katie and Erin can see them in person. So that maybe once the spring rolls around, we'll go out and do an island tour for the sustainable.
Yeah, let me know. There are other islanders I noticed on this call too.
Great.
So
We should totally do that, 'cause,
we'd be excited to have you for sure. Sure. And we could set something up with the school, the elementary school. Maybe you could visit the school. And
let's do that. Let's put that on our calendars. We'll have to talk about that later, Jess.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, that would be great.
And then let's see. There was one about how are we tracking our progress?
Yeah. I'd love, if you don't mind, I can answer this one, but if you don't mind, I'd love to share my screen a little bit just to show what we have.
That'd be awesome.
So we actually spent a lot of time doing this. I'm glad that somebody asked, but we track our progress on all of the actions listed in One Climate Future plan, and it's all listed here on the oneclimatefuture.org website. Under progress, and you can see, the progress that we've made on different actions and what's going on currently, and any upcoming things that we're doing. So this is updated every year. We just finished updating this for all of the actions that we took in 2022. So we try to keep this as helpful as possible, and try to keep it so that, One Climate Future isn't just like a plan that's sitting on a shelf. So we are we keep this updated quite regularly.
And so another thing that helps us make sure we stay on progress is people engaging with the plan. So I know our city councilors are really interested in the plan, and many city council meetings, one of the councilors might ask how a policy advances our climate goals. So the fact that our elected officials and people in the community talk about One Climate Future and reference it that's what keeps it alive, and that's what helps us make progress. Because if there's ongoing community support and ongoing support from our elected officials, we can continue this work. Because we're not there's so many demands on resources. And as long as the policymakers know that this is something that's important to the community, we'll get the resources to keep moving forward. So,
and there was one more question about data, and it was whether there's a citywide format for gathering data regarding the community composting. So is there a node in that site you just shared, Erin, for how that's going, or is there data somewhere else about that?
I'll let Katie take this one.
No, that just made me because we're working on trying to make that information public. We do receive reports for how much compost is collected monthly and annually, and we haven't gotten the chance to really collect and inventory that information yet. But that's totally one of the things that I would love to make public, is make people really see the numbers of how much just diverting your food scraps it really can make a difference in your trash can and citywide. So stay tuned.
Well, we're actually working on a report right now for the DEP will calculate all of our totals. So I'll make the commitment that we'll get that updated on our webpage in the next few weeks.
Great.
That's awesome.
Oh,
And
so I would,
one other,
go ahead, Jess.
I was just going to say one other question that I couched in that giant question storm that I presented to all of you was, has Portland committed to achieving zero carbon by a specific date?
So I think that's one of the action items on the Sustainability and Transportation Committee's work plan this year, is to updating our goal to zero. Like right now it's 80% reduction by 2050. It's going to be zero, like 100% reduction by 2050. Likely to be the goal. We're going to have that conversation this year in the Sustainability and Transportation Committee. So we want to make sure that the goal we have is a science-based target. And so since we adopted One Climate Future, science is advanced. And I think, it's indicating that we need to be more aggressive. We need to get to zero emissions by 2050. So that's what we're going to have that conversation with the city council this year. Councilor Zarro asked us to put that on the agenda, and it's going to be a topic of conversation. So that'll be an opportunity again for the public to offer some feedback about that plan to make our goal more aggressive.
Great. I'm going to add one question of mine because we have a little bit of time. I was just thinking about how we're going to reach some of those goals in I love our city and I love my community of Riverton, and I love our neighborhoods, but we live in a place and a time and a country and on a planet where people are really committed to wasting things and throwing things away and mowing grass that's already short, even shorter, 3 times a week when it hasn't even rained. And that's true in my neighborhood and my community, and I wonder about, and this is a little sort of more theoretical, and hopefully there's a positive answer, where any of the 3 of you kind of think some of that change is going to come from. Hopefully not, sort of mandate or obligation, I guess, to kind of turn some people, turn a corner with some folks who really want to be keeping it all turf. I just want turf. And I want it to be short. And even if it didn't grow, I'm going to mow it anyway. Or I'm going to use a leaf blower on one leaf, but I'm going to go over the whole lawn to get that one leaf. And even, it's great to reduce our waste, but to see, the overflowing recycling bin, like, oh, how did all that stuff get into that house in this one week? Yeah, so I wonder if you think about some of that cultural stuff, where you all think how we're going to make some of those changes. I do it too. I throw some stuff out.
Who wants to go first?
I don't know. That is the conversation I feel like the 3 of us have every day. And I do think, I think we're living in a world that's talking about it a lot more. And I think that's one of the most important things you can do, is talk to your friends and family and neighbors and talk about it more. The more we normalize what the future looks like. And 2, I think instead of running away from a world on fire and flooding and scary, we run towards the future, which is sustainable and renewable and more green. And I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, but I'm happy to let somebody else.
Want to take a
Yeah.
stab, Erin?
Yeah, I do think, that is something that we talk about all the time, because, like our goal of, reducing emissions by a certain amount and everything, there's only so much that like our office could possibly do to, we can't like force people to put solar panels on their house, and, that's not even the best case for every building and things like that. So, there's only so much that we can do, but something we do try to do as much as we can is education and talking about it and bringing up these conversations and having these conversations. And, I think just making people kind of think about it is one of the biggest things.
So I would say that I've worked for the city for more than 25 years. I've been doing environmental work for that whole time, and working on climate a lot in the last 15 years or so. And I guess I'm optimistic and encouraged because it feels like for the first time the ball's sort of starting to roll. For a long time, it seemed like, pushing and, really not much traction gaining. But, since we had, worked on One Climate Future, since it got adopted, it just seems like the public is more interested, the policymakers are more engaged with these topics, and there's more conversations in the community. So that's what gives me like hope and encouragement. And, we're seeing change, we're seeing progress. And I think we can build on that. And I'm really excited about the Sustainable Neighborhood Program. And one of the reasons I'm excited about it is because it's all about promoting those conversations, getting neighbors together to work on things together, to have conversations and get to know each other better. Because that's where change is going to happen. I mean, neighborhoods really are the kind of the building blocks of the city. And if if our neighborhoods are strong, then our city is going to be strong. And so yeah, that's why I'm optimistic. And people are wanting to have that conversation, and we don't always have to agree on everything. I think that's part of building those strong neighborhood connections is building those relationships so we can have we can maybe talk about something, and maybe there's some disagreements, and we can learn from each other, because we're all like on the we just need that dialogue. And I'm hoping that this program will help us have those conversations.
Great, thank you for that perspective and positivity.
Yeah, and inspiration. That was like that clip right there. We could cut it out of the recording and you could put it on your One Climate Future. It was really great. Yeah, it was really, you encapsulated all kinds of things, and I appreciate it. I think, don't be surprised if I like sneak into your office someday with coffee for all of you and say, hey, let's sit at a table and talk. Sure. I would love that. Obviously, your conversations are great. So thank you. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us.
Yeah.
Thank you
again
for hosting us.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Sure. So yeah, thanks again to Troy Moon and Erin Ferrell and Katie Timms and Jess from Southern Maine Conservation Collaborative, and on behalf of Portland Public Library as well. I think we will, hopefully Jess and I will see you all next month, and Troy and Erin and Katie will see you whenever you find them at a fun event like Basin Park on Earth Day. And with that, I think we can wish everybody a good night. And yeah. All right.
Thanks again for having us.
Yeah,
Thanks,
thank
everyone. Have a good night.